Today I'm actually going to be giving a brief sort of oversight of Exodus 3 and how I think it relates to a lot of problems of philosophy, such as the one and the many that Plato brings up in his Parmenides. And I'll just read a brief excerpt here of Exodus 3, and basically the context is that Moses is asking God for his name so that he can witness what he saw and who he's talking to. And God says to Moses in verse 14, "I am who I am." And he goes on to say, "Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent you." And the reason why this is such a fascinating passage is because I think it actually solves a lot of problems in philosophy. Because usually when you say I am, you denote your existence. Like, I am Solomon, or I am your father. But nothing is so comparable to that phrase which God spoke to Moses. And the very nature of I am, we cannot say Solomon who's Solomon, as this is a nonsensical statement, and we're not actually saying anything about the name spoken, but we're just collapsing the two names together. Hence, I am denotes existence, existing in a particular manner. So whenever we say I am Solomon, as the name Solomon isn't to simply be, we say I am Solomon to imply Solomon is an essence, or a who, a what is. To be even clearer, a what is to inquire into the very identity of the object in question. So I am who I am is to say that God equals who he is, but what he is, I am, is existence itself unqualified. But whenever we denote the name I am, it isn't to simply say that you are existing in a particular mode of existence, but the I am denotes your who-ness as existence itself, as a full enveloping maximum. You can't add existence to something already exists. So whenever you say I am who I am, it's simply to say that God is existence itself without any limitations or constraints, but the pure act of existence existing through itself. And I think this is a particularly insightful sort of overview of metaphysics, especially within St. Thomas's theology. St. Thomas Aquinas goes in his De Potentia and says, "It is necessary that if some one attribute is found in the common among the many things, that it is caused them to be by some one cause. For it cannot be that this common attribute that belongs to each one as derived from its own being, since each one according to its own unique self is distinguished from every other, and a diversity of causes produces a diversity in effects. Therefore, since the act of existence is found common among all things, in which according to what they are distinct from each other, it must be that their act of existence is communicated to them, not from their own selves, but from some one cause. This seems to be the reasoning of Plato, who maintained that before all multiplicity that there is unity, not only in numbers, but in real things." And St. Thomas really has a brilliant insight into this problem of the one and the many. The many are not identical to each other, but they have a sort of similar ontological existence, or sort of this grounding future in which they can all exist but not be each other. Really, the source of existence where something is said to exist but not in that particular way, right? This is, but this is not. But all of it is, but it's not existing just as existence itself. Hence, we cannot explain the problem of the one and the many just by pointing to the many. Therefore, the many must be grounded in a full enveloping maximum in which we can all say that this is, but it's not each other. And it must have some sort of concrete ontological unity, a single source in which all of them relate commonly, and which we can all point to by participation. Now, the source of the unity of existence must be just existence itself, not to merely have existence and some finite capacity, but to be the very subsistent fullness of existence itself. Thus, existence acts as a full enveloping maximum in which all positive perfections and attributes can enact within, and outside of it is nothingness, which is the ontological status of evil. And if you look at some Neo-Palamites on YouTube, such as Jay Dyer, they'll say that existence is an energy, but it's not the essence, right? Because we can't name the essence at all, but we can name the energy of existence, which is complete nonsense. Anyways, going on with the point is that existence really acts as a sort of medium for all positive perfections. That whenever we say love, goodness, mercy, that they're really identical to each other in existence itself, but it's only through the diversification of our world that we see these things come out as separate things, but they all share existence in unity in the Godhead. And by the way, this is why our modes of predication, whenever we try to attribute something to him, it doesn't grasp all who God is. All names that we apply to him are not going to grasp the entirety of his glory, but it really does tell us something about God, just not in the same way as creatures. Thus, St. Thomas doesn't only solve the problem of the one and the many, but he goes beyond Plato in this idea of the world of the forms and underpins the very fabric of all forms, which is existence itself. It's the underpinning of all things in which exists. And in this way, the many are one in God, yet the one is transcendent and existence itself, not limited by some sort of finite capacity. And I think in a different video, I'll really break down the problems of different positions and the different solutions they try to pose, and really give a deep philosophical insight into the one and the many. But I think this passage is just really telling that Moses, whose contemporaries of the Greek philosophers were trying to figure out solutions to these problems, and that God would really, in his divine providence, see the different problems in which these philosophers were dealing with and solve it in himself, in the Bible, the revelation to God to man. And I think another reflection that I have on Exodus 3 is that notice how God, when he manifests himself in creation, he doesn't destroy the creation around him. And in the book of Exodus, it writes, "The Lord appeared to him as a flame, fire out of the midst of the bush. And he saw that the bush was on fire, but was not burnt." And that little detail that's left there very much contrasts with this idea of the Greek gods, that they would destroy everything around them, but rather the God of the Old Testament, which could have been portrayed in this very powerhouse sort of manner where not even creation could handle God, but we see God manifesting through a fire that we see in the bush that was lit, that wasn't even burned by this. Well, what does this tell us about the very nature of God? Well, for one, creation is not evil and it's not a prison to our bodies, but rather it's coinciding with God. Not that it is God, but that creation isn't incompatible with God's glory, but rather creation is the light in which God manifests himself. And something I think is relevant is that St. Gregory Nyssa, commenting on Exodus 33, where God says that you cannot see my face, for no man can see my face and live, but rather that you should know me by my back, he says this about the passage: "He would have not shown himself to his servant if such sight were to bring a desire of the beholder to an end, since true sight of God consists in this, that one should look up to God and never cease in that desire. For he says that you cannot see my face, for man cannot see me and live." Scripture does not indicate that the causes of death is for those who look, for how could the face of God ever be the cause of death for those who approach it? On the contrary, it is the divine that is the nature of life-giving. End unquote. And I think Gregory of Nyssa is really alluding to the beatific vision and sort of building up this metaphysical background in which we are doing off of Exodus into this very beautiful sort of cosmic relationship to God, that all things sing to God, all things are in a active liturgy to the one, to God. And this is what the psalmist says too, and I think there's a lot of misperceiving that people do, that this is just some sort of really old document made by cavemen who had no idea what they're talking about. I think once you really do the metaphysics, you really see that not only the Bible is only rationally plausible, but it's true, and all the historical accounts to it. But obviously I'm going to save those for a different video. If you made it this far, God bless. Please leave a like if you liked it, and leave comments down below of what you want me to do for another video. May the grace of Jesus Christ be upon you.